Hello to today's training. This is FERPA Updates, a refresher for all staff. If you're new staff to Summit High School, this will be new information for you, so please pay extra attention to the entire presentation. What is FERPA? FERPA stands for the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And remember, FERPA is not a confidentiality law. It only protects what's in a student's educational record. Now, it does deal with confidentiality, but it's not specific for everything that occurs in a school or that happened. There's exceptions to the rules. FERPA just covers that information that is on a student's educational record. FERPA also provides parents and adults, students, which are considered 18 plus years of age in the state of Tennessee, the right to prevent sharing of student records without their consent, access and review any student records of their own, obviously, not just all students, and request corrections to any student records. So if they think there's a discrepancy or something wrong, they have the right to request the correction occur or be fixed. What does FERPA protect? Well, anything that makes the student identifiable where information might be shared. Some examples of this are obviously social security numbers, student disability or evaluation information, that's from a special ed standpoint, academic transcripts, their attendance and behavior records, and even information like their mother's maiden name. There are exceptions to these requirements and standards that are set by the law. For example, a school official with educational interest, for example, a teacher, an attendance clerk, or a counselor, can have access to student records even if they're not their student. A school official or SRO when necessary to promote school safety. And I've got a quote down there that says, in the event of a viral outbreak, school shooting, etc., in which vital records may need to be shared with legal authorities necessary for public health and student safety. There are always exceptions to the rule. These are supposed to be discretionary and only if they are required by the individual to, solve a crime or continue student and teacher safety amongst everyone in the school. Also, ICE agents, the immigration agency, and other immigration enforcement should not be permitted to access students or student data without a valid court order or subpoena consistent with FERPA. So if and when they ever came calling, it needs to be a court-ordered subpoena specific for FERPA information. What is not protected under FERPA? Basically, anything considered directory information and thus not potentially harmful. For example, school photos, height, weight, names of athletes on school teams, like if they're on a roster or something like that, the years attended that they were at the school that in question, addresses and phone numbers, and awards and areas of study. Basically, anything you could potentially find by doing a Google search is not protected under FERPA. All right, so for the teachers in the audience, this is specific to you guys. FERPA for teachers in the classroom. Be careful with the technology you use in your lessons. Students should not be logging in with personal information. Always remember to use district-approved website and resources. Those are listed on the county website. Keep and use student data you have and use it securely. Store your students' data and information using your school's data management systems. Don't email information to unverified parent email addresses, and be sure you're not accidentally disclosing student information to the wrong people. When responding to access requests, you may communicate education record information with students' parents, but be sure you know your students' legal guardians. Under FERPA, a parent, quote unquote, includes natural parent, a guardian, or an individual acting as a parent in the absence of a parent or guardian. If you ever receive a request to inspect or review educational records that you do not have access to, then you need to speak to your administrator before giving access to those. Going back to the knowing your students' legal guardians, that information is usually kept on whatever attendance program you guys use in your school or district. Ours is called Skyward. So all you would need to do is just look up a student's name and you'll be able to tell if a person is listed as a legal guardian. And if their name is not listed on that program or, in that informational lookup, then information does not need to be shared with those individuals without permission from their legal guardians. All right, FERPA and the digital age. We have entered a time in our careers where pretty much everything is on computers, our lesson plans, everything, programs we use are all online. FERPA has been questioned and therefore weakened numerous times over the years through regulatory changes. Information is being shared with tech companies. If a program is called free online, quote unquote, and you don't have to pay for it, there's a pretty good chance that that information that you enter into their website is being mined and sold out to data mining companies looking for, purchase histories or algorithms to try to determine sales and things like that. So be very careful on what vendors and what websites you're using. Make sure they have safeguards in place. Number two, third-party lenders have safeguards, so make sure that that is a company that uses those. Ransomware and data attacks are being updated. That's currently something that is going on amongst all programmers. We're probably a little further along into this process. The date down here on this information is from 2019. So here we are in 2021. I'd say there's been a lot of progress made, and I'm sure a lot of districts aren't using information that's not approved through, some sort of malware or ransomware hacking safety and security. And then information and data disposal. There's a separate slide here in a few minutes about this, but we want to make sure we're always clearing our caches, deleting old student work, and purging anything that's not being used or hasn't been looked at in a while. 8 ways to be FERPA compliant. This is for teachers and administrators. If your school are doing these 8 things, you have a pretty good chance of being, in a pretty good situation from a FERPA standpoint. Always look to raise FERPA awareness. You want to confirm that FERPA applies to you. Know the rights, protections, and exceptions of the law. You want to make sure you're choosing compliant vendors. Typically, that's a district level thing. Superintendents and school boards will be making those decisions. But don't just go out and just start downloading materials from sites that aren't necessarily approved, because you may not know what those sites are using, not only for student data, but your own information that you're having to put in to access any materials that you want to use. Train all school employees. That's part of what this type of presentation is about. Implement compliant policies and procedures. We have a policy in place. It's available on the county website. Encrypt files and emails. Our email system is protected. There's a statement in every email that's sent prior to you opening it that says this came from a WCS approved site or user. So, we should be pretty good on that, but just always be aware of that. And then implement other prevention tools. There's always ways you can continue to be safe, closing browsers and a myriad of different things. All right, this is specifically for administration. If you are an administrator, please pay attention to this section. If you have aspirations to become an administrator, this is important information for you. Security cameras, okay? Parents and adult children have the right to access footage that is directly related to the student, okay? That's important. Directly related. It can be used for and if it's something that's being used for disciplinary action, if a student is injured or has a health issue, if the footage contains any personally identifiable records, and or if this footage will be used for an identifying purpose. Those are the times that a parent has the right to access the footage. Now, if there are multiple students in a shot, or if a school fight's being investigated or something to that effect, then the district has the right and the opportunity to do their best to get that footage edited so that faces can be blurred out or whatever, except for the individual in question. But that has to be given an ample amount of time for that to occur, and that's law. So that's something that everybody should be aware of, and it should not be an issue if it ever came up in court or anything like that. Also, things to remember as an administrator and teachers as well. This is applicable to you guys in your classrooms as well. Data destruction. Ensure that any third party, typically they're vendors that you use their programs within the county, that they agree to destroy the data that they use when it's no longer necessary. For example, post-graduation, if a student moves away, etc. Require certification of destruction after it's completed. You need to either receive an email or a statement that says this data has been destroyed. Keep that on file or on record somewhere. Specify the form of the destruction to maintain best practices. You need to know, has it just been deleted? Has it been completely wiped from their memory system that they use to store data, the cloud or whatever it might be? Or have they actually shredded documents or erased CDs or destroyed the DVDs or CDs, etc.? That goes on to the next one about hard forms of data. Make sure those things are being shredded and destroyed accordingly. And then create and follow any destruction protocols in your building. If you don't have any, you probably need to look into developing those. We have those in our school. 2 years, I think, is the statute of limitations. After 2 years of a student being gone, then their records are destroyed. Here is my reference pages. I've actually got it broken down into two. Okay, that was a little smaller because I couldn't get it all to fit. But I hope this was informative, and I hope you gathered some information that you may not have prior known. And if you did, maybe you had forgotten, and hopefully this was a refresher. I appreciate everybody's attention. Thank you.